Hello and welcome to the Hemet Film Festival podcast. I'm Gabriel Diaz, your host and one of the co-founders. And joining me today is Daniel Maggio, another co-founder and filmmaker. Diego Olivarez, who is a filmmaker and DP of the film Straight to the Moon that was showed at our film festival, as well as Nathan Sanfilippo. Did I get that right?
San Filippo.
Sanfilippo. I keep doing that in my brain.
I assume Maggio is Italian, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like San Filippo, but that's how you would, without being cartoon Mario. That's
Right. You gotta extend it out.
Sanfilippo.
Oh,
It's just San Filippo,
Okay.
that's but it's
So just really obnoxious. Sanfilippo.
yeah.
Okay.
With your hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Molto bene.
Proper. If there was a way to like mark words where it's like, say this with your hands, like
Yeah.
blot or something.
Oh, like a diacritic, but for hand
Yes.
movements. You've heard of umlaut. Now we have handlot.
Yes, and you both are the founders of DeNoche Films, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Correct.
So it might be fun to start with like maybe how you guys met, what was the first project you guys did together, and how long you guys have been working together and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Diego and I met, was it 2017?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
2017. Yeah. Now that's going on 7 years ago, which sounds really scary. But we met through a mutual friend, Jose Gomez, and he and I went to school together at Moreno Valley College, and he basically approached me because he wanted to make a film for their film festival submission. And we were in a writing class together. We had a writing group, and he approached me and said, "Do you want to write a script?" And I said, "Yeah." So I adapted Chekhov's Dead Body because I was like, well, it's public domain, and this is easy enough as a starting point. So I did that, and then he goes, "Now, do you want to direct it?" And I go, I mean, I love movies, but I've never thought about directing one. I've always, and at that point, especially, I was really considering myself a writer exclusively. And then he introduced me to Diego, who actually was doing sound on that, not cinematography. And it was a really bad short film, and it's in the vault, and it will remain in the vault. But it was the introduction to, I think, the whole world that we're still just inhabiting.
Yeah, and so you'd never made a film before.
No, and I was really into movies. I would watch movies all the time. Ever since I was actually like a kid, I was always into them. But I was an English major. I was not a film major, and I was focused on writing, and all the writing that I had been doing up to that point was prose. It was not a screenplay. So I quickly looked up like screenplay formatting and all of that, and got a software, and then I proceeded to make something, I guess.
Yeah, I'm curious what you learned. So it's like going from like, oh, here's what I imagine or here's what I wrote, and then going into actually filming it and it being your first time doing it. Was there like a big takeaway you feel like you got from that first one?
Failure is always an option, is basically what I learned. I mean, we got it done, and actually the person who edited that was the person who edited Straight to the Moon. So it does go back full circle. He saw that I was making something, and Jonathan was he's, when I say I'm into film, he's like, he lives and breathes it, like no one else I know. And he said, I'll do this for you. But yeah, it was just a mistake. And then we made more mistakes, and we made more mistakes, and
Yeah.
now we've mistaken our way into film festivals.
Mistake your way to success.
Yeah.
Kind of how it works most of the time. So Diego, what was your interjection line into that before you meet up with Nathan?
Yeah, so I knew Jose from high school. We actually played tennis together. We were both on the tennis team. So we go way back. And then he introduced me to Nathan basically for that project. At the time, I was in film school at Riverside Community College. I was
Okay.
just kind of doing that, learning the ins and outs of everything. But yeah, it is true. I did start doing sound first, um, just because I wanted to get experience on like multiple sets, and every set needs like a sound person. So I was just like always doing random short films for like in Riverside or like in Orange County. And I did that for a while, but I grew pretty tired of it. So all that time, all that while, Nathan and I were like making, short films, and some of them were never finished. Some of them are still in a hard drive somewhere. Um, so yeah, obviously, we learned a lot through that process, but more than anything, like Jose, Nathan and I, we basically learned how to make movies together
Yeah.
through trial and error. So obviously, like there's a lot of we have a shorthand now that we wouldn't otherwise have if that never happened.
When I think of one of the biggest things that we learned how to do was understand that there is a grammar to shooting, and understanding that that language needs to really fit the content and the subject that you're working with. And because I don't know if ever sent you Dead Body recently, because Jonathan sent that to me like a year ago because he still had it on his drive, and I was watching it. And other than the fact that it was terrible,
Yeah,
it was just like we had coverage for everything. It was like, you need a shot here, you need a shot here, you need a shot, you just shoot. It's like
yeah,
we were literally just doing, whatever we could, and it didn't make any sense when it was assembled together.
yeah.
I mean, if you'll forgive the educator mindset that I have on this, it's hard to say those things are failures if you're learning the skills that you want to keep bringing forward in each new project. Like obviously in the sort of brevity's sake, we want to say, "Oh, it was a failure. I don't want to talk about that." Or
Yeah.
this film's rough, whatever. But if you're stagnant from it, then yeah, it might be a failure. But if you're coming out of it, like you said, going like, okay, this is a better shorthand, or we understand each other better, or we have a new approach that we want to take to things, or it's going to refine the edge on our next project. Not really a full failure, right?
Yeah, and I suppose a lot of that ties into just getting older. Not to say that we're old, but just that when you're really young and when you're starting off, I feel that there is a lack of ego check involved in the projects that you're making. And when you're setting out to create something, you're gathering people together. You want everyone to buy in into thinking that this is as great as you think it's going to be. And when it starts turning out that it's not, then I mean, the first thought is to blame yourself, but then you start to want to blame everyone else for not helping realize whatever your grand idea was. And so I think that contributes to that sense of failure. But it is, once you set that aside and you do realize that this is just building skills and building your shorthand with one another and collaborating with each other, then it is turning into something that you can take back with you.
Makes a lot of sense. Um, so it might be good to cover you mentioned that you were into movies even at a young age. Do you have some that really stand out to you, or things that kind of felt like those inspirations that started to, as you're transitioning from just doing the English to like writing and kind of getting involved in film, you're like, here's what I want to pull from, or here's what I think of myself as wanting to pursue?
So I'll let Diego go first, because I actually don't know his answer to this. I'm curious, and then I'll go.
Yeah, so I've always been into movies. Basically, I learned a lot from my older brother because we basically like speak in movie quotes a lot of the time. And they could be like really random movies. Like it could be Friday, it could be Matilda, it could be The Mask, or like
Which
Independence
mask?
Day.
The Eric Stoltz one, the Peter Bogdanovich one, or Jim Carrey?
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, of course.
And he is,
Bogdanovich.
They're
come
just
on.
quoting a depressing movie back and forth to one another.
So yeah, he introduced me to like cinema, and I've always had a love for it, but I never thought I would, try to make one. until like basically I would say when I graduated high school and I started driving, instead of going to, my college courses, I would skip out and go to the movie theater. That's basically what happened. And specifically, I graduated in 2014, and that year, in my opinion, was like a absolutely like killer for cinema because you had movies like Boyhood, you had movies like Birdman, Foxcatcher,
Your favorite?
Nightcrawler.
You missing your
Whiplash.
favorite? Yeah, there you go.
Like
Which
all
one?
these movies, Whiplash.
Oh yeah.
All these movies were coming out at that time where I was graduating, and I actually wanted to be a history teacher, you know, but that all kind of shifted once I entered college because I just kind of became obsessed with movies.
It's stellar. I love that. Whiplash is a good favorite too. I can see why.
With that movie is just so tightly edited. It's just so tightly wound the entire time.
Yeah. It's very lean.
Yeah. And the short's really good too. But for me, I grew up like with a mom who had Turner Classic Movies on all the time. So that made it, I think, pretty easy to start getting into Alfred Hitchcock. That's the big one, at least with my mom. And then I remember when I was, I don't know, maybe about 8 or 9, my dad was watching Lawrence of Arabia because we had like the double VHS tape for that, and I was watching it and I was just blown away. And Amadeus was another one, and I don't know why, but I was like literally 9, 10 years old, and we had Amadeus on DVD, and I told my mom, I was like, I think I'm gonna watch this in the other room because that's where the other TV was, and she goes, okay, it's kind of a long movie, and I go, that's fine, and I watched it all, and I was like, this is amazing. But I never thought I was gonna make a movie so much as write one, and really just I was more interested in writing stories and hopefully a novel. But the movie that made me realize, okay, this would be something that I'd be interested in doing was when I watched Magnolia. And that was the first PTA movie I think I saw was Boogie Nights, which is I think most people's first of his. But when I saw Magnolia, I was just kind of like, this is something that I feel I would be interested in doing. So I can kind of pinpoint that movie.
That's awesome.
Nice. Yeah, I had a very similar reaction to that movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
In like middle school or something, and I had a middle school teacher and was like, write down your 3 favorite movies, and I put down Magnolia, and she was like, what the hell?
3.5 hour depressing movie.
But I think what's so great about it though is that it kind of plays by its own rules. Like it's definitely following in the tradition of like some other movies like Shortcuts or something like that, like these multi-story thing, but it just does a lot of stuff because it wants to do it. And I think that's what was inspiring about that movie is like, oh, you can do whatever you want if it works,
Yeah. And he was like 29, I think, when he made that movie, which makes me feel bad. But, I think he's 27 when he made Boogie Nights. But like when you watch that movie, it feels like someone has been making movies for 30 plus years to like come out with that. And I've heard him say if he were to go back, he would cut a lot of stuff and trim it down. But to me, watching it now, it's like, yeah, it's not as perfect as Phantom Thread, but I like the messiness that is involved in that. It fits the story.
Actually, that's a really good point. I think that's something we kind of saw with the film festival, like the shorts and kind of people who are, so maybe this is their first, second, or third film, like they're still kind of new at it. The messiness really does add something. Like it's an almost unquantifiable sort of mot to the sauce of like, it's the same person could come back 10 years later and try to make the same film and make it look cleaner and make it look better edited, but it doesn't necessarily have the same emotional sort of weight that hits with it.
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree with that because I got a chance to see the student slot.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah.
I was so inspired by that slot specifically Like because that one, like all those films basically just showed you that there are no rules to filmmaking,
Hmm.
and as long as you just try to like, you don't have to be technically proficient at anything, as long as you want to tell a story and you have certain means to do so, like it'll come across, like it really will.
Well, there were two specifically that we both really enjoyed, and the one
Yeah.
was where it was like just all images, and it was La La
Luna.
Luna, La Luna,
Mhm.
and that I thought like I was super into that, and you know, just the way that they were focusing on the atmosphere to really carry it through. I mean,
Yeah.
that's perfect for something that's a short film, and even in something as sprawling as like Inland Empire, David Lynch is doing stuff like that, and people are like, he's a genius. It's like, yeah, but there's a kid who probably has not seen a movie like that and is by intuition latching on to things like that. And then the other one was the one where the three kids break in, and then they start like getting like pulled away, and while it's like kind of a silly fun story, it had a clear 3 act structure, had clear like character motivations, and had some really fun filmmaking, just like with that shot when the kids being yanked away into the darkness. Like that was really fun. It was fun watching those.
Yeah.
So I suppose that is as a good a dovetail as we're going to get for jumping into the film you guys submitted, Straight to the Moon. That was the only one that we had that was shot using 35.
I mean, I would guarantee it probably, unless someone had the budget for the actual motion picture 35.
So 35 millimeter film rolls. What was the inspiration for that? What was the like, let's do it this way?
So this project, I don't want, it was not an accident, but it was thrown together a lot more quickly than the previous project we had done, which was how we play. And actually, in between this, we did a spec ad for Patagonia, and but how we play was a lot of pre-planning. Diego and I have just really committed ourselves to, pre-production is the heart of this. And some filmmakers are fine not working that way and make great things, but that's just not how we've come to be. So Raphael, who's the lead, he goes back and forth to New York, and he's actually about to go to New York again because he gets a lot of theater work out there. And he was coming back, and I had a limited time to speak to him before he flew off again for another like Shakespeare festival. And I said, well, you're here. I want to do something. I want to shoot it on film. And I was thinking motion picture film. And I go like, it's going to have to be about 2 minutes because of how expensive it is. And the hope was 16 mil. And so we came up with a bunch of different ideas. And then him and I were talking, and I just said, like, what if 2 people want to have sex but don't know how to? And that was
The classic conundrum, right?
Yeah, the classic conundrum. And and I go like, he was like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, because the last thing we had done together was a depressing exorcism. So so we decided that that's how we wanted to do it. So then I'm like, well, Diego, because we talked to a different cinematographer who had experience with 35 and 16, and they were quoting fair rates, but the rates were just out of our budget. And I was like, all right, Diego, now it's time to just learn this together. And
Yeah.
So then it was like, well, we don't have the budget for 16. Maybe we can do 8. But Super 8, you can't control any of the functions on the camera. It's all auto. So Diego, being the DP that he is, does not like that. So then it's like, well, now what the fuck do we do? Am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like, what the fuck do we do now?
Not a fucking ton.
Okay. Okay. So Jonathan Novak, who I mentioned earlier, a very close friend of mine and someone that we've worked with in some capacities before. He says like, you can do this on still film. So there's this Nikon F3 commercial when it came out. It was like the fastest camera in the world at that point. And the commercial is amazing. It's on YouTube. It's all stills and it's all just put together. And the frame rate's adjusted so it looks like moving pictures. And it was like, okay, Jonathan has this Canon. Do you know the camera, Diego?
I think it's an A2 or something like that.
It's an A2. It's an AE2.
Yeah.
So his camera has the ability to do that. And we go, all right, now we have to test it and see if it works. So we pulled out some Kentmere, which this is Pan 100, but it was Kentmere 400 ISO. And we did some tests, stitched it together in post, and we said, okay, this could work. And then Diego took the camera from there.
Yeah, I have to say, we initially had this idea or an idea similar to this style from Jonathan like 4 years ago, because he wanted to make a movie like Straight to the Moon. But, you know, at the time, I don't know what happened. We just never got to it. So that was always in the back of my head. I always remembered mentioning shooting with the still photography camera. So once we tested it like a few different times, we, you know, obviously came to the conclusion that it was possible. We just had to be very intentional about every shot that we're going to do, but specifically the time restraint for the shots, because a roll of film that has 36 exposures would only last so long. So the
13 seconds. It was 13 seconds. Yeah.
It was 13 seconds at 500th of a, you know, shutter speed, which is the shutter speed that I kind of wanted to shoot at. And then we scheduled all the blocking and every moment of that movie to that specific time.
Oh, fantastic.
Wow.
So
it was all pre-planned to that.
Oh, yes. And we had a rehearsal day where it was, well, we did two things. So the rehearsal day, we did do a camera test towards the end to, again, just see like, how are these bits now going to play out? Because we've seen that we can shoot us walking in Canyon Crest Plaza in Riverside and stitch that together. But like, what do the comedic bits look like? So we did that, but throughout that rehearsal day, it was Jasmine Flores, who is our amazing actress, and Diego and I have known for a long time as well, and Raphael, and they were just doing one bit after another, and that's when we were like adjusting things and, you know, trying to smooth certain bits out. And we looked at the developed footage and we said, okay, this can work. But the script supervisor's job was not only to log the film, but to really, that's what, because, you know, the script supervisor, they say keep time. Like on our movie sets, that doesn't really matter too much if they're keeping time, but this it did.
Yeah.
Because if they exceed that time limit, you know, we're screwed. So the rehearsal timing, our script supervisor, Neil, was just on that. And the logging really helped Jonathan when it came to developing everything. Because Jonathan, the reason why this was accessible too is because Jonathan develops film. So he did it all in his home bathroom.
Wow.
The development and the scanning. Like he did.
And the scanning.
Oh my God.
So he essentially edited the film in his bathroom.
Wow.
Like, that's how it was.
Is that not, that's where I edit most of the podcast. Is that not?
So and not only that, like literally every single part of this, the intertitles were photographed.
Cool.
And he was researching how they would even do like iris ins, iris outs. And we tried it. It just didn't work too well. But you know how they would do fade outs and it would be like they're literally underexposing that film in development. That's how they would do it back then. And we were like researching how to, I mean, Jonathan was the one who's doing all of that. So it was trying to be as authentic as possible. And I guess when it came to developing the actual story, because we knew this is how we were going to film it, we came up with the premise, and then when it came to writing it, it was like, well, since we're shooting it like this and it's going to have that jittery look, it needs to have the feel of a 1910s 1920s silent film. So I was trying to find a way to bring that all together.
That's fascinating. So taking a little bit of a step back on that, it was, to my understanding, 13-second blocks you basically had to work with.
Yeah. I think it was like 13 and some change, but basically
13 some change. So you're locking in every sort of section bit into that 13-second interval.
Yes.
Did you find that you still occasionally had moments where you're an actor, or you were like, well, maybe this might work a little bit better this way, but you're trying to then navigate around the time, or maybe this plays if we hold longer here? Like, was that coming up, or were you basically like, we have a rigid skeleton we can only follow?
I think it was the rigid skeleton, and everything in there was, we have to work from there, except for, and Diego knows, the one shot where he picks her up off the ground and then he lays her on the bed. If you watch that, it's two separate shots. It's a continuing of the bit. And we knew that in rehearsal because we were timing it. We go, okay, this is going to be, he picks her up, he moves to the right side of the frame towards the mirror, and then we're just going to basically kill off that roll because it's going to be like 5 frames.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be enough time to bring her to the bed and lay her down. So you just hold the shutter button down, and then, okay, now slightly different camera pan, and then that's the new bit. And so we knew that one for sure, but we knew it going into it. And I just want to say real quick, this was, 4:3 framing, which we've shot in, it seems like now too much. But Diego didn't have a way to create that framing in camera. I mean, I guess he's had experience with it before, but he didn't have a monitor or anything to create that framing. Logic tells you to center most things, but there are times when the actors were moving like that bit with Raph, and he got it literally perfect. The first shot that slides and dollies, he was like, I have BTS of him just completely like this, leaning over through the little why am I about to call it an IP for the viewfinder, and it's just like, so that, to me, that was incredible watching the footage back, is how he nailed the framing every time without the ability to actually tell him what the framing is.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, the reason why I can kind of have that aspect ratio in mind is because we've been shooting 4:3 for a while, for a few different projects.
Who needs all this space? You don't need all this space. It's too much space on the.
Yeah, that's like, you hear the argument about frames per second, like the human eye can only see a certain amount. I like the inverse of really, you only need 4:3.
You really only need it. Life's a box, anyways.
Yeah, and that was the tricky part, because basically nobody else could see what I was framing, so they didn't really know what we were shooting, except for me and occasionally Nathan, who would
check the frame,
check the frame here and there. But yeah, it was interesting to work that way, because we had to be incredibly intentional about everything, and I don't think we ever exceeded the 13 seconds. There was never a take where we basically wasted a roll, which was good. And then I don't think, I don't think that ever happened, huh?
No, and that's the one thing that I really want to just spotlight the crew on is, and Jaden, our producer, who's produced a few of our projects now, but everyone on this set has never shot film before. And we had a few people there from Franco, who we worked with before, who are in the USC Masters program for film. People from the Inland Empire, whom we've worked with before, are actors. And it was this seems like it would be very stressful. And to some extent it was, but everyone knew what we were there for. Everyone knew how this would work, and everyone knew how precious every single frame was. And they were so locked in. It was a lot of fun. It was hot because we were shooting in the summer, but everyone like really, really cared about pulling this through. And not to say that on other projects, other people don't care, because I think everyone has buy-in on a project, most of the time. But you just got the sense that people were like not reverent, but just they didn't want to waste anything. They didn't want to waste a single shot.
Yeah.
But that's what the rehearsals were for. We're smoothing out the times, because we would rehearse once, twice, three times before we started rolling. And Raphael and Jasmine are just so talented and just so professional that there were times where it was like first one, bam, they were already, and then Raph was like, I'm ready to go.
Well, that's a cool thing about shooting in that format too, because it's like doing things now digitally, you can run into the opposite problem where you're just like overshooting and just like it doesn't have as much, the stakes aren't as high because you can just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. So it seems like, you mentioned Peter Bogdanovich earlier, but that was something like with the Last Picture Show. Everything in that movie was incredibly rehearsed, just knowing the limitations that they had with the budget and shooting on film and all these things. It's really cool to for you guys to just have that experience firsthand, because going from digital and then going to that where the stakes are so high, where it's like, cool, we got to nail it. And it kind of like raises the like, I don't know, the professionalism of everyone there, and to just be like, we gotta get this right. And so that's really cool.
And I think too, with like, none of this is to say that digital is bad or anything like that. It's just that, and I think there's so many films that have been shot digitally that look beautiful, but like Diego and I, and Jonathan was the first of us, but we got into the still photography with it. And as we continued, I think, our journey along there, we just realized that we needed to challenge ourselves more. I guess my feeling with digital is that if you can do anything with it, then how much of it truly matters. And again, that's not to knock it. And it is like, but that's just my personal creative feeling. The limitations of film present to me so many more possibilities when it comes to shooting, when it comes to being precise and choosing those moments that you really want to nail down. And him and I have always been, well, not always, but have been much more precise, really starting with how we play. And even Best in Show was pretty nailed down. And I like to rehearse with my actors a lot beforehand. Diego and I both have theater backgrounds, and we're literally in the room with the actors, no cameras, for several rehearsals. And that's why I love working with Diego, because he knows that everything comes back to the characters.
Well, with the appreciation of working with him, you guys formed DeNoche, correct? So we start talking about that a little bit.
Well, what do you want to say about it, Diego?
Well, yeah, it was basically, I guess we co-founded DeNoche along with Jose Gomez. I would say the project that really kind of, set that in motion was a film that I directed called Love All. It's like a tennis drama, like a sports drama about a tennis player who wants to be great or good. And
decent. Yeah, he's
yeah, it actually starred Jose Gomez as a tennis player.
Mm-hmm.
So soon after that project, we kind of started taking, our films a little more seriously. And we made like many other films after that. And I guess it's been like 7 years now, right, Nathan?
Yeah, and there's another person that worked with us in DeNoche a lot, Ruth Madrid, who's an amazing writer and director, and
Playwright.
she's playwright. Yeah, and yeah, she's done stuff at UCR that's like really good. So she's also the other person that we've worked with. She just came along later.
I
Do you
think
guys have?
something. Go
Oh,
ahead, Daniel.
I was going to ask if you guys have like a I don't know, like a production schedule you guys try to keep to, or like we try to do like X amount of films a year, or this kind of like what's your like if you were like a DeNoche is like having a business meeting, and we're like, all right, what's on? Or you're a theater company,
we have
right?
had
Like,
those before.
what's our season?
Get
What's our
insider baseball on
2024
this. Come
season?
on.
Yeah. Mhm.
It used to be that way. I think it used to be as soon as the next project is done, let's hit the next project, and bam, bam, bam. We ran into some issues with that. And the first being that we weren't finishing our projects in post production, which I'm sure you guys may have some familiarity with. I feel like it's a common thing to run into, but maybe we're just lazy. So we would like post production is hard. It is the hardest part of filmmaking. You can create a cut, but is that cut going to sound good? Is the grade going to be good? If you didn't nail the sound, now you have to do ADR on a limited budget where you bring people into your room and speak into a microphone and try to like
Pray that it matches.
yeah, you have Adobe Audition, of course, and
Yeah.
that lines it up pretty well, but it's like, man, that one line sounds really off. And you know,
Yeah.
so we were running into those problems, and then it was just kind of like when someone's ready to make something, you know, let's make it. And that's kind of just where we're at now.
Like it's taken a more organic approach versus like when something is worth doing, you want to do it versus like we need to hold ourselves to a certain type of output or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's not content creation. And I think we had to kind of learn to accept that, you know, no one's waiting. There's not a captive audience waiting for the next DeNoche film to come out. So if we don't have a captive audience waiting, might as well spend the time making it, you know, at least something that we ourselves can respect first and foremost.
Yeah. Yeah, because most of the time the projects that we make, they're really just passion projects. And sometimes you can't really like force a schedule on that. It just kind of comes organically. So whenever someone wants to make something, we go ahead and, you know, try to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you guys, it sounds like you guys have a big like crew or a big pool of people that you have worked with or have had involved. You know, you mentioned like the crew members involved with Straight to the Moon. And I'm curious at this stage too, it's like being 7 years in, I'm sure everyone's like working and you know, in some kind of like career that they're in. I'm just wondering what you've noticed as far as like getting the band together at this stage of life, and like what are the challenges of that? I mean, because we experience that all the time, where it's just like, you know, everyone's working, and it's just like, okay, like how are we going to get everyone together? So I'm curious how you guys handle that, what you've experienced. Yeah.
I feel like scheduling's always been the biggest problem, or when it comes to, you know, just bringing people together. We do have a pool of people that we can, you know, reach out to. And if we don't know them directly, you know, we have our producers like Jaden or people in Future First, who's another group in here in the IE that we can say like, hey, we need this and this. So like we can get those resources, but I don't know if scheduling has become any more of a problem than it has always been. But I do think that we tend to keep our crews small, and that helps us operate well.
Yeah. I mean, like these projects, they always start with the four of us, but you know, we can't make it ourselves. We always reach out to other collaborators in the area. We like to work with a lot of people in the Inland Empire. Like Nathan said, there's a group named Future First. They put up a film festival just last month, actually. And they got to showcase a bunch of IE filmmakers, and we screened How We Play there as well. So we just have, throughout the years, we've gotten to know the community pretty well out here. because there's only so many of us,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But yeah, we always invite people to. We're always looking for new collaborators too. Like that's always big with us. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's just like it starts with the four of us, and then it just kind of branches off with the rest of basically what the IE has to offer.
Yeah. And a lot of those people do have worked in gigs in LA, have done, more professional jobs and stuff. So like when they come in, everything runs really smoothly. Like one person that we've worked with a lot, Brandon Cocoletzi, is just like amazing. We could put him on Gaffer, we could put him on like First AC, and he's just like always great. And he worked on Straight to the Moon as our Gaffer.
Nice. So yeah, it just sounds like you guys always find a way. It's like whatever's going on, you always find a way. Yeah. And that's the cool thing about, I guess, getting connected to other filmmakers and showing your stuff is like, I find that a lot of times film festivals has way more to do with meeting other like-minded artists that you really like and want to work with. Almost as opposed to like, hello, I'm from Focus Features. I love your short film. Can we turn it into a feature? Here's $5 million. So it's more like I guess in like personal experience too, it's like it's more about just I've met some great people just through that, and you show each other your work, and yeah.
And that's kind of what I've, before I think we saw, and honestly, the two movies that we have right now are the ones that are the first things that have screened in festivals. And I think we talked before, we would always talk like, oh yeah, we're going to send this into festivals. We're going to send this into festivals. We're going to send this to Sundance. And we never did. And I think it was the realization of the intention of film festivals is to actually like just meet collaborators that you would be interested in working with, or just seeing the talent that's in your area, seeing what's out there. Because the fact is no one from Focus Features or A24 is like, I mean, so some of them are, but they're not like coming out to San Bernardino to or to Hemet or to Moreno Valley or Riverside to say like, I got a blank check here for you, and let's see what we can do. That's just not how it works. So
not yet.
That's right. As Gabe has like the entire earth behind him, he's like, no.
But I will say, seeing Straight to the Moon at the Hemet Theater on the big screen felt really rewarding, just in its own sense. I think just being able to see your movie play with an audience, as I think as gut wrenching as it can be in some ways, as your movie starts screening before an audience, I think it is super rewarding, because it's like, God, I'm not watching this on my phone. I'm not watching this on my computer monitor. I'm seeing it, the way that we hope movies are seen.
I think honestly, to tie it all back, it's in the way you talked about film and shooting on film versus digital, kind of forcing your hand to find these moments. You kind of create a lightning in a bottle situation. The film festival kind of has that same vibe, like Daniel talked about, where it's finding other people, but getting to see like Straight to the Moon or these other shorts at the festival is kind of almost guileless. There's not a big like, I'm here because I have to have this award or I have to accomplish this goal by it being here. It is getting to just enjoy that. We got to show it. People got to see it. Like, maybe we'll talk to some people who also are interested in the same stuff or who liked the way we shot it. And so I think you get that lightning in a bottle, like energy or feeling or emotion, whatever you want to call it, that you can't sort of replicate otherwise. And so I really like the way that happens organically.
Yeah, and do you feel like you guys was that the first time it had shown to an audience in a theater?
In a theater, yes. Awesome. We did like a private screening for cast and crew, along with How We Play, since they were both done at the same time. And that was, I think, is it Diego? No, someone took a photo of me when we were screening it. It was at an actor, John's house. And as soon as the movie started playing, I like turned to the lamp and I was just staring at his lamp, and so someone has a photo of me just doing that as the movie, and everyone else is locked on. I'm just like, man, this lamp looks really nice over here.
Yeah, that's true. I have to say, you guys did such a great job with the
Yeah.
Hemet Film Festival. Like to see our movie on the at that historic theater in the
Mhm.
with the big screen and the red, the velvety reds all over this place. It was such a great, like honestly, it was a pleasure. Like it was
Yeah.
so cool.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I will say too that Straight to the Moon like landed really well with the viewing audience. Like, because a lot of the films I'd sit in there and watch as well, and you're kind of trying to be like, are people like grabbing onto this? Are they kind of
Yeah.
adrift? And people were really just like, yeah, we get the concept, we get this, we're on board, we're enjoying this, we're laughing at the right spots. I was like, oh, this is great. Like,
Mhm.
Especially when you are screening something that is so reliant upon like an understanding, not completely reliant upon, but like, is tied to a period movie and a way of making things. Franco, who is our first AD on Straight to the Moon, he has a great movie that is like a screwball comedy homage that he made at USC that we both got to work on. And he said that when he screened it for the USC audience, of his fellow peers, like because apparently a lot of USC, I guess I shouldn't talk bad, but apparently a lot of film students don't watch movies. And they were like, what is this? I don't understand what this, like, what is his girl's Friday? What is Bringing Up Baby?
Mhm.
So they were kind of just like, what's going on here? So it was nice to feel that people understood that. And his movie's very good, and it lands with the right audience.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think to your guys' credit, what you did really well was you took the extra effort in actually doing the film photography. It's those little things that help make it a great homage that actually like transports you to that style. Versus like if you shot it on digital and just like put grainy effects on it and like cut out certain frames, like there's like digital ways you could have achieved that. But there might have been some unconscious thing in your head going, I get what they're doing, but I don't know, versus like what you guys did. Like you also as an audience may not know that you went through all the work that you did to make it the way you did. But it's working on that unconscious level for an audience. So
like the
good job
uncanny
to you
valley
guys.
of film.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of that is, I don't know if it's self-flagellation or not, but it's that when I watch movies that are made now, and they, if they're doing some scene where they're doing like home videos or something, it's like supposed to be super 8. If it's like a period piece, and it's like, here's some super 8 home videos, or they're shooting it like it's supposed to look like film and it's not. And it's like, dude, this movie has, okay, maybe if it has a $5 million budget, sure, but like you couldn't afford some super 8 cameras like to just process that real quick. Or if they are shooting, if they have a 20 million, $30 million budget, it's like, just do the real thing. Just do the real thing. Like like, so I don't know if it was me and Jonathan and Diego all collectively telling ourselves at the same time, like, if we're gonna do this, just do it right. And
then of course Martin Scorsese copied you guys with Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
There's a whole sequence in there.
Yeah. When that opened up, when I saw that first scene, I was like, Diego, that I don't know if I told Diego, like, that looks familiar. But I will say, Daniel, after your movie, because your movie was before ours in the lineup, and I thought that ours was going to be right after. And when yours was done, I was like, oh, shit. Like, I was like, oh God, like this is so good. And we have to like immediately follow that up. But it wasn't. But
even
I
if
mean,
so, it would have been a 1-2 punch. Like,
to me, the thing that I really liked about the Big Book was how funny it was.
Yeah.
Like
awesome.
that, a lot. I don't know if I said this to you, but I was saying it right after it ended to Diego and to Jonathan, and I said it felt like if Paul Schrader decided to make a comedy,
Wow.
because it was very, all his movies, not all of his movies, but so many of his movies focus on this odd worker occupation
Hmm.
and seeing how a character is developed through that occupation, or what even drives a person into that occupation in the first place. And in that sense, that's why I was really drawn to it, because I love that form of storytelling, and he's just one of my favorite filmmakers in general. So I was like, it feels like if he had more of a sense of humor, he would do something like this.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is funny because we all had that same thought. Like we didn't even
Yeah.
talk to each other. We're like, this is like a Paul Schrader comedy. Like this is brilliant.
Wow.
And yeah, and we love Paul Schrader. So I absolutely love your film. It was hilarious. I loved how you guys connected the TikTok
Yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. That was
it was
very
amazing.
intentional on my part.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
was incredibly funny, and I love I don't know his name, the lead actor's performance.
Oh, Jared.
Jared.
Really solid.
Jared.
Yeah.
Really, really, really good.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Man, you guys are my people. Like the fact that you even would know Paul Schrader as a reference point, and like of course that's like the biggest reference point for that movie and that storytelling style. And then have you guys seen the movie Thief that Michael Mann made
Yes,
with
Michael
James
Mann. Yeah,
Caan?
great
Yeah,
movie.
that's it's like if Thief and Paul Schrader and maybe something funny, I don't know, had a baby.
I
Right.
mean,
But I appreciate you.
both those people came out with movies this year too.
That's true, yeah. But I appreciate that around the humor too, because it's like when working on it, you don't know if
Yeah.
people are going to find things funny. And then also with dealing with like AA and all this other stuff that it deals with, you like sometimes you just don't know if like you're completely alienating an audience, even just by evoking that stuff. I think we watched the first cut and we're like, oh fuck, is this a commercial for AA? No, like, we don't want that. But anyway, I really appreciate you guys saying that. I know this is your episode, but I'm just gonna soak that in. Thank you guys.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it kind of stems from a level of genuineness. Like that's something we've talked about on some of the other episodes, but I think we've mentioned it with Straight to the Moon. It comes in with you guys using the film and role and trying to evoke a genuine response from it. I think the Big Book does the same thing. Like you're saying, it doesn't feel like a commercial for AA or like it's missing the margin or ostracizing people because of the fact that there's a genuine like life experience or a lived moment that comes out of it. You know, you're expressing that out to the audience as opposed to pantomiming it, which would feel kind of disingenuous.
Yeah, and
And
the style needs to serve the story. So it's like both films have very distinct styles to them, but they are done to fit the story at hand. But also like you guys don't shoot everything with still photography. And then
no.
I don't shoot everything with a zoom lens
Yeah.
mimicking Tangerine Dream score.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Yeah. Anyway. But anyway, so it's like the style fits the story, and I just think that's a cool place to be.
And I think just in terms of immersing the viewer into, watching something, I guess that is Jared's real job, right? He does do this. So like the ins and outs of how you were going about telling like that character's journey felt so grounded. And that's what really draws me into those kinds of universes like Thief or the Card Counter, which is not even really about card counting at all, but just those, you see when someone knows the details that these people live and work with every day. And that is what is so fascinating to me about those kinds of characters and those kinds of journeys. And when you mix in that comedy, I think it cuts through some of, like you said, some of the AA material that could be more heavy. It could be, I guess triggering is not a word that I use often, but triggering for a viewer, but that humor like brings you through.
I think a lot of people too, That's what stands out to me about the short film medium and just like these film festivals and trying to find those networks of people is everyone has those types of experiences they can talk about that they have a genuine understanding of that maybe not everyone else does. And they can bring that to the table in the stories they might choose to tell. And I think that just as a medium or as an art expands everyone. If we're constantly seeing these new stories and like, that's fascinating. And it's like, oh, I'm really getting this. Like you did that in your job or you had that background. Like you start having this network that sort of transcends just the visual aspect of what you're going to.
Yeah. And well, oh, go ahead.
Always because everyone who played in the last block, the Hemet block, they each had like everything was so specific and unique. Like no two things were alike, which was very cool.
Well, I think with short films, and I know Diego feels very similarly about this, especially with some documentary stuff that he's doing. But they present so many opportunities to do things that honestly are a little bit more challenging and restrictive in a longer narrative if it's an hour and a half or 2 hours, because once you get into that long of a narrative, people often do want to see a 3-act structure to pull you through. They do want to see those clear character arcs to pull you through. A genre like horror works so well in short films because you don't have to over explain anything. It's about a visceral emotion and feeling. And I know Diego's like doing like documentary work and just on his own and in the short film genre.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, that kind of speaks to why Nathan and we like never make the same film. Like every film that we make is completely different from the next. And that's something that I'm pretty proud of as a collective.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you took away the 4:3, a lot of our movies do look very different.
That's the unifying thing.
Yeah, it wasn't always.
Yeah. I'm wondering maybe to kind of wrap us up, if you guys want to, in that vein, if you want to talk about, is there a project that you guys that's germinating right now or the next DeNoche film?
Well, Diego, I know before I go, I know you do have some stuff that you are cooking, right? That I haven't even seen.
Yeah, I'm working on a documentary series where I document local drive-ins and swap meets that they host. I've been doing that.
The photos are behind him.
Oh yeah,
nice.
Those photos
cool.
were in a gallery a year ago, actually. We're just sitting there now in the office. But I've been working on that for the past couple of years, and I hope to continue to do so for the next couple, like 2 more years at least. And what I do there is I just document through still photography. So I shoot on film. I switch formats. Like sometimes I shoot panoramic, sometimes just regular 35, and occasionally medium format as well. So I've been doing that for a while. And yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna put anything out, but we'll see.
It's gonna stay in the vault. It's like all those Prince albums that are just forever going to be locked
6
up.
times the original amount of work he did is just vaulted somewhere.
Yeah.
Or have you heard George Lucas allegedly speak about all these movies that he's like made that he's never ever going to show anyone? I don't know how much of that is true, but allegedly they exist. But the other DeNoche project, there is something in the works. There's a script that is on its 4th draft right now. So our hope is to be shooting in May. It will hopefully have some people that we've worked with before, and then other people. One of them, and I haven't reached out to them yet, so I'm not going to mention a name. So I don't want to jinx it, but one of them just saw in community theater. And honestly, that's where some of the most amazing actors that I've met are. Raphael, I met at Shakespeare in the Vines, like in Temecula. And, he's doing national Shakespeare festivals now. So our goal though, is to for sure shoot this on 16 mil with sound sync. So we're just going to open up our wallets and do the cartoon shaking them out empty. And
we're going to burn the wallet too.
Yeah. And Diego actually bought a 16 millimeter Canon so that we could just practice on. There's no sound sync, there's no crystal sync, but we can at least practice our metering and lighting and look at the scans and start crying.
Amazing. Yes, and then hopefully a November premiere.
Yes, at the Hemet Film Festival.
2024. Yes. Well, yeah, thanks for spending the time with us guys. It was good to get to know you guys better and hear more of your story. And yeah, I'm just so glad that you reached out. Like, I think it was like a couple days before the festival was starting, and Nathan, you found us on Instagram or something, and you're like, can you please play my short? And I was like at the height of like programming fatigue and just like, holy shit, we're playing so many movies. I was like, I don't know, dude. And you're just like, "Hey, let me send it to you." And I'm like, holy, this is amazing. Okay, cool. Like, we'll make this work. So that was just so cool how that happened. I love that you just found us, just in time, and we were able to have you guys, and like you added so much to the festival, and I'm just so glad we met you. And yeah, and keep us updated with everything.
Well, real quick on that. So Diego had already followed your Instagram page, because when I clicked on it, I saw that he was following it, and but I saw you on Film Freeway, because I was looking for festivals for How We Play. Like Straight to the Moon was done, but it wasn't like, there were a few adjustments we wanted to make to it, and it was so I saw that when I emailed you. I think I just said, like, are you still accepting submissions? And then you said no. And then I was like, well, we do have this thing that's 3 minutes. So
yeah, I think the 3 minute thing helped.
yeah, because the other thing's like 14. So we were like, okay, well, let's send this. And that was a crazy week for Jonathan, because he then got together the teaser that we did, where he had to, like, again, photograph, develop, and scan everything for that. But I reached out to Diego. He goes, "Oh yeah, I saw it. They were closed, so I didn't even like send them your way." And so I really appreciate you guys for, in the height of programming to take the time. Because even when you hear it's 3 minutes, it's like, okay, but like, what kind of 3 minutes are we looking at here? What's the quality of those 3 minutes I'm devoting my life?
Well, absolutely. I can't thank you guys enough for being on the podcast. Nathan, Diego, thank you so much. Daniel, as always, I love when you're co-hosting with me. Appreciate it. And we haven't locked in anything, but we're looking at that 2024 for the next Hemet Film Festival. Hopefully we'll have some DeNoche film in there. At the very minimum, I hope you guys will be there, because it was definitely added a great energy to the festival.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. I have to say, if there's any filmmakers watching this who are based in the Inland Empire, I would absolutely recommend you guys submit to the Hemet Film Festival.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you guys, I don't think you guys will find an experience like that out here in this area, but like, you can get it out there in Hemet. So there's a ton of filmmakers out there that have films, and you guys should submit it.
Not in that kind of like historic theater environment where you feel like, this is something that is rewarding. It's rewarding to see your thing play anywhere, but it's rewarding to see it play in a historic theater like that. And I think it's just, to go off it's just important for us to highlight talent that we have here. The IE was not intended to be an arts community, but I think it's something that we can spotlight.